Welcome to the Underground.
Turn me up, bitch!
My Little Underground with Peter A.
It's My Little Underground. I'm Peter A. Make sure you follow me on socials at MLU Pod, and you can listen to the entire archive of My Little Underground over at peteraradio.com/MLU Pod. Today on the show, all the way from Seattle, we have Mount Fog talking about her 2021 album Guide to the Unusual being released on cassette. And on this cassette, there is a demo of a song off her yet to be announced new project that's coming. So we talked about the details of this new project and her growing collection of physical music like cassettes, CDs, and vinyl, the importance of Vera Project to the Seattle arts community, and how Mount Fog is a casual wrestling fan. I did not let her leave this interview until we talked about her newfound appreciation to pro wrestling. So please help me welcome Mount Fog to My Little Underground. Well, Carolyn, Mount Fog, thank you for coming down from your mountaintop to talk to me here on My Little Underground. I think it's very cool that you go to wrestling shows in Seattle. That is really cool. We may have more to talk about after we talk about your artistic work. So I'm very excited as you are, because your album from 2021, Guide to the Unusual, is out on cassette, which is great, through Ghost Mountain Records. Now, what's interesting about this is that not only are you on cassette, and I think your music is very cassette friendly, like you and our mutual friend, Old Man of the Woods, but there's a demo on the cassette for your upcoming project that has yet to be announced. Now, I want to know the mentality of doing this kind of promotional tactic in a very digital world.
Yes. Ooh. So here's the thing. I never thought, and I'm really not putting on any airs here, I never thought of it as a promotional tactic. It was more like, we've got space on the tape. What do we want to put in the space? And I thought, hey, I've got a ton of demos from this project. It's in the works. There's one that I feel like this song is going to get a little more produced, but it's not going to change that much. So let's throw that on there. And then, it just gives people who already have maybe bought my CD or bought the digital album, like a little bit, I guess in that way it is promotional, just a little more excitement to be like, hey, I'll get the cassette and get this little special preview. The funny thing is, the song I chose, I feel like is a little bit of an outlier from the rest of the songs on my album. So you'll see if you listen to it, and I'll be curious what you think. But yeah, I mean, I think that 2022, and maybe we can get into this, but I think 2022 is the year where I personally am like, how do I do things that are not digital? How do I like go into the analog or into like real spaces and like interact with people, and like, because I just feel like the digital realm isn't working for a lot of people. It definitely doesn't work for me a lot of the time. So I was really excited when Andrew, who runs Ghost Mountain Records, was like, hey, do you want to release any of your music on cassette? And I was like, absolutely. I've always wanted this album to be on cassette. So it just ended up working out that I have a bunch of demos, and I chose one that I thought was going to be a fun ending to that tape. But I don't think it's not necessarily like super reflective of the other songs on the upcoming album, but it's a really fun track. So that's why I chose it. But I guess in a way it is promotional. So, but it wasn't really conceived of in that way.
Interesting. Very organic. I like that. So,
yes.
So, you use a great word, a great phrase, I guess, digital realm. Now, what makes you, I guess, I don't want to, for lack of a better term, deterrent of the current digital space that we're living in? What makes you want to, what is bringing you to analog?
Yeah, I mean,
or physical media in general.
Yeah, physical media in general. I mean, I think like a few things. So in late 2020, I can't remember what year it is anymore. my father-in-law was getting rid of a record player and his record collection, and I've always been interested in vinyl, but never. I'm really cheap, so I'd never gone down that route. And so we ended up getting this like really amazing. I'm really into classical music, and most of his records were classical music. And so we got his collection and like this record player, and then we got a few new records. And I started getting pretty into listening to things on vinyl, not necessarily because of the sound, but because of the experience of being really intentional and picking something, listening to the whole album all the way through, sort of pairing that with whatever I'm doing and being really like conscientious of that, being able to see like album artwork really big and up close. It's just a whole experience. And so that was sort of the beginning of it. And then I think that so much of our lives have been moved online. And it's just this exhaustion with being on a screen and interacting with the device that is very anti-human, I think, in a lot of ways. And then I think the third part is like recent months. I just think that, for instance, Spotify is not a music company, it's a data company. And does not have your best interest in mind. It certainly does not have my best interest in mind. And like, I've just had really great experiences interacting with people in shows, getting to know musicians in real life, interacting with people on Bandcamp, although Bandcamp recent news aside. So it's just like, what's giving me joy and happiness and sustenance? It's not getting the streams on Spotify. It's not, I don't even have a Spotify account. So it's just like how I listen to music, how I've been getting joy out of it, and then sort of like what's been giving back to me. It's been more in that physical realm. And I played a lot of shows in 2021, for better or for worse, and people really wanted something to take away with them. And so I got CDs made of Guide to the Unusual, and I was like shocked that people bought CDs, because like I have a 2006 Toyota Corolla. It's got a CD player, like that's where I listen to CDs, but I don't think most people like have a place to listen to CDs. So it kind of made me realize like people like having a physical manifestation of an experience, whether it's going to a show or just like liking an artist or whatever, like wanting to contain that memory. So I mean, that was part of the motivation of releasing this on cassette, was just like wanting to bring that music to people who might want to like go on a walk with their tape player and like not have their phone with them and be able to interact with the music in that way. So that, I think that was a really long story, so I'll just stop there.
Well, you said a lot of things that are interesting that I actually connect to, as far as Spotify, right? Spotify is, you're right, it's not just a music company, it's an audio company. They want to be an audio platform. That's why they're really gun-ho on Spotify, on podcasts. And yes, they have music there, but they're doing more than just music, right? So again, I love music, right? So I'm looking for platforms that love music, that are trying to show me music. But again, I'm just like you, as far as listening to like records and physical music, there is the thing where there's this intimacy where you're putting on this record and you have to sit through the whole side. You can stop it if you want to, but you're going to mess up the needle. You might mess up the record. So yes, there is this thing where you have to like really just sit and listen to it. That's why I only buy records that I know I'm going to enjoy. Yes. So it's going to make that experience easy. And again, I'm like you, I use music as a soundtrack to everything that I do, whether it's going on a walk. I love taking walks, playing video games, or, preparing for a podcast or whatever I'm doing. So yes. And to your other point too, your music, when I'm listening to it, I was thinking, because I was listening to it on Bandcamp, and I'm like, this would sound great on a physical thing. It would sound good on a cassette. Really, I thought cassettes when I'm thinking, Mount Fog will sound great on tape. And then lo and behold, a week later, you announce it's going on tape. So you don't have a Spotify account. So how do you listen to music generally? Just when you're going on a walk, or when you're doing anything, going to the supermarket, whatever.
I mean, I did have Spotify for about a year. And during that time, when I would go on a walk, like say I'm walking to the supermarket or just down the road, I literally was always listening to the same things all the time. Like my go-tos, like the things that my safety, my comfort blanket music, which I'm sure you have too. Where like when you're feeling like something, you're like, I'm gonna go to that song and that artist because I know it'll be okay if I listen to them. So I found that it had sort of like, I know Spotify is supposed to be about music discovery. I wasn't really discovering any new music. I think the only new artist I really ever listened to on Spotify was Nation of Language, which I don't know if you're familiar with them.
No.
I only became familiar with them because my friend literally was like, I have an extra ticket to a show. Do you want to come? And I was like, sure. And then I went and saw this band and they were incredible. So I got into them. But now I listen to things on Bandcamp and I just listen to the whole album. So I've just been finding stuff. Sometimes it's random. Sometimes it's stuff in my feed. I have a collection. It's not big. I have a lot of things in my wish list. So recently I've been going back and listening to old Blonde Redhead albums that I don't know. So that's what I do when I'm mobile. When I'm at home, it's either records. I'm a big radio person, so I usually have the radio on, the original streaming device. And then, so my husband actually has a giant music collection that he started collecting music by going to libraries and taking CDs home and I guess ripping the CD, like copying it to his computer.
Yeah.
So that's how he got his collection, mostly is through like pirating, basically.
Oh yeah.
So we have a giant music collection on our like home desktop. But I'm still trying to figure out like the best way to do it because I hate interacting with iTunes and I hate like having to like buy things through a store and then it's only valid on this device and then like all these things. So recently I did get a cheap ass tape player and I'm starting to grow my tape collection because I like tapes and I think it's fun. So I want to grow my tape collection so I have a collection of things that I can be like, okay, I'm going on a walk. I'm going to grab these two and go. Because the other advantage to that is like with my iPhone, you have the limited shitty headphone situation. And like, I like using my big studio headphones when I listen to music. So
you got to get one of these, the converter thing. Cause my phone, right. It takes USB-C, right? So no headphones are, except for the shitty ones they give you. So I got this little, this gimmick, converter thing, and you plug it into the thing, to the USB, and then you have a little 3.5-inch gimmick, so you can listen to your. Yep, that's it.
Thought about that. I just hate how these like technology companies make you not only buy their exorbitantly priced device, but then you have to like get additional things just to like, But I thought about that, but I haven't really solved the puzzle yet. The other thing I like to do, frankly, is like I like to sort of walk around and just sing to myself and like come up with new songs. So it's like I like just not listening to anything in my headphones because I'm literally on a screen all day for my job. So like when I go out and about, sometimes I just leave my phone at home and I just like walk around singing to myself. Like that's my natural state of existence. So I like to do that too. So
there's more I want to touch on that in a little bit. Hold that thought, but there's a few things I want to kind of poke you about. So you're building your cassette collection, right? And this is very important. I'm very curious because I'm building a cassette collection myself, which I started like 5 years ago. So tell me, what are some things that you love that are in your tape deck?
I have like 3 tapes. This is really new for me. This is super new. I have Lion Milk. What's it called? I'm horrible with names. I'm gonna have to search my Bandcamp. There's this jazz pianist guy, Lion Milk. I hope you are well. He's a artist from LA. He's a jazz pianist, sort of like vibey. I don't even know what you would call it, like free, funky dream jazz.
Oh, you gotta send me this stuff.
I have that. That is one of the tapes I bought. I also have some like local musicians. I bought their tapes. So I have a tape from Catch Rabbit, which is a Seattle band, and a tape from
Miranda told me about them.
Oh yeah, Catch Rabbit's awesome. You should check them out. as well as Beatrix Sky. And then I have another tape from Ghost Mountain from this artist called Happy Axe. And she's an Australian artist who plays the saw and violin. It's really cool. It's really good.
The saw?
Really, yeah.
Like the saw that we all know of, or is a saw an instrument?
You can bow a saw. You can bow a saw.
Wow.
So she plays violin and she bows the saw, and it's like really cool. She does these cool beats. Yeah, and then I think that's it. Like I literally just started this like a month ago, where I was like, I want to get tapes. Because I have a portable CD player, but it skips a lot and it's not great. So I think tapes are a little more fun. So if you've got ideas or suggestions for how to build the tape collection, I think one thing I want to get is like more things on like the sort of like dance / Aphex Twin side of things. Because that's kind of what I like to listen to when I'm just like bopping around, is stuff like that. So looking for more sort of underground dance sort of techno things, I guess.
DOS is a good one. She's from New York. She doesn't have any tapes yet. I think she does. I'm not sure. There's Ella Minus. Ella Minus is really good for what you're talking about.
Hang on.
Okay.
Gotta take notes. This is a note-taking situation. What was it say? Ella Minus?
Ella Minus, yeah.
Okay.
And then there's Sophia Cortezes.
Okay.
She doesn't have tapes yet, but she's on Bandcamp. But yeah, I think you'll enjoy that.
I need to find people who are like into the tapes world. I mean, I feel like the tape universe, what I'm discovering, it's like it's a whole world. Like people are really into tapes.
I love tapes because there's an intimacy to it. You know, you put it in, you press play, and then you and you can stop it whenever you want to, you know what I mean? And then you hit play again and just keeps going where it left off. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's something you can physically like interact with and understand and like change. I think that's kind of fun too. So, because I think there's something just very alienating about devices like this that, I mean, they're incredible, but like you can't like, the common person, definitely cannot engineer this device in any way. I can't open it up and fix it. And I think like there's something about technology that you can interact with and sort of like understand. So yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mean to sound like such a Luddite, but I'm slowly becoming one. But one cool thing about Luddites that I actually learned is that originally Luddites were all about, it was actually a workers' rights movement. I didn't know that. Like I thought being a Luddite just meant you were anti-technology. No, it was actually about workers just protesting technology, kind of replacing them and taking away their dignity and their hours and all these things. So it makes me feel a little bit better about becoming a Luddite.
I think like being a creative is like the most human thing you can do. Like you know, no matter how many NFTs or how many, you know, because I heard rumblings of like AIs making music. It's like you can't, you know, if a person is flawed, so you hear the flaws in the music is what makes it amazing. So so with your album Guide to the Unusual, the inspiration, correct me if I'm wrong, came from you just taking walks and singing to yourself, like you said before. So when you're doing this, are you, you said you leave your phone at home sometimes, but like, have you ever taken your phone with you and like recorded and taken voice memos or what?
I sometimes do that, but I've never used anything I made a voice memo from for a song. Most of the songs on Guide to the Unusual came about because I had an idea for like a phrase. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to sing to this now. Or I had like a melody and then that like slowly became a song. It's a lot of the songs like Blue Summer. I mean, Blue Summer was an idea that came to me in early 2020 and like it morphed through so many different iterations. And like, I finally like kind of crystallized it like 7 months later. Like I remember I was at a Trader Joe's in Olympia, Washington, singing like da 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 da, and I was like in the wine aisle or the coffee aisle, and like this guy's stocking stuff was just like, "Oh, what are you singing?" And I was like, I don't know. It's something I'm writing. And he was like, oh, are you a musician? I was like, yeah. And he was like, do you have a Bandcamp? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, what's it called? I was like, this. And he was like, okay. And then like, he literally followed me on Bandcamp from this like Trader Joe's interaction, which is like one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. But like, yeah, like usually the way I come up with stuff is just like singing to myself. And then kind of just like coming back to my synth later that evening and then just like fiddling around with it. But most of the songs on Guide to the Unusual had many different iterations. It was a very like iterative process for how I wrote a lot of those songs. So yeah, but the inspiration is definitely just like a lot of like alone time walking in the rain. I mean, so a lot of my life is that. So yeah.
I think it's so fascinating that somebody specifically asked you what your Bandcamp is. Usually it's like, are you on Spotify or whatever? You know what I mean? That's so interesting.
I mean, it's Olympia, Washington, though, which is like the home of like the DIY punk music scene in the Northwest. So it kind of makes sense. There's so many people making music there, so many creative people, and it's a very like DIY place. So if anywhere you're going to be asked, what are you singing and do you have a Bandcamp page? I think it's Olympia. So yeah.
So when you're doing these walks and singing to yourself, do you find yourself like forgetting some melodies that you've sung to yourself, or was it a thing where it's like, okay, the thing that you're singing to yourself, you remembered it because it was so catchy, or you wanted to do something with it later?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually it's like I've got an earworm, and then I like come back and I try to figure out what I was doing. And then like you were saying, like the human flaws part, it's like there's no exact transcription. It's like you've got this vibe or this feeling. Like I remember Spider, like I was like taking a shower and I was like, Spider like, and I was like, what is this? And then I was like, I just went and like wrote Spider like. So I don't have any sort of like hard and fast process. Just like, I feel like when you're inspired by something, it's good to sort of like run with it and not really ask a lot of questions. And don't get in the way of yourself. Like if you're feeling something, just like go try and figure out what you're doing. And like, I don't overanalyze anything. I mean, so yeah, but a lot of people have been like, oh, like your songs don't have like traditional pop structure. And it's like, yeah, because I didn't write it with a guitar with like pop structure in mind. But yeah, because I wrote them in this like meditative way, they end up sounding that way, I guess. I don't know.
So aside from an entire album that kind of came from these rainy walks, what are some of your biggest takeaways, or things that that maybe you might have learned about yourself, or because you're spending a lot of time with yourself, or have you what other kind of benefits do you think that it helped you when you were taking these walks? Like, do you feel healthier? Do you feel a lot more creative, inspired, or just just kind of like a mental release from whatever stresses of the day you had?
Yeah, I mean, I think like during 2020 is just like I was inside a lot, and I was just forced to be inside a lot, and especially like the beginning of the pandemic, like it was just a way to like get out, like literally leave my apartment for the day. And like I'm still kind of in that mode. Like I'm probably going to go on a walk tonight just because it's like I've literally not left my house today, and like I just need to go outside. So yeah, I mean, I think there's that, and just like getting the mental space from whatever I was caught up with during the day, and just getting to know my neighborhood a little more. I mean, I'm not like a health nut. I'm not like, oh, I gotta get my steps in. It's more just like, I haven't left my house today. I'm gonna go do that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way, because if I'm inside a lot, I'm like, okay, I need to like at least let me get some vitamin D just for a little while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Take a walk, just maybe a lap around the block or something like that, because I don't know, because it's when I feel good. I don't know, like, okay, I don't, again, like you said, I don't count my steps. When I get outside and walk around a little bit, I feel good at the end of it. So I keep doing it.
For sure.
So you recently recorded a song with a violin made of car parts, right?
Yes.
So how many of your uncle-in-law's makeshift instruments have you used or plan to use?
He's amazing. I wish I had like his whole studio of instruments. We just have that one. So he's incredible. His name is Ken Butler, KB. He goes by KB. He lives in New York. He actually performed on Jay Leno once.
Oh.
Back in the day. He's very like, I feel like I really put him in the sort of like David Byrne vibe. Like he's sort of like just quirky, into like, I don't know if he's into world music, but he seems like he might be the kind of person who does it. He builds like musical contraptions. He's got this most amazing rent controlled space in New York. It's incredible. It's just like full of things he's built. He also makes really cool visual art. We have a lot of his visual art pieces in our apartment, but only that one violin, and it's not very resonant. So I actually used it to record. I have a song about a book, Gaining Consciousness. And so I recorded these sounds to make it sound like an old, like sort of clock, like ticking noises. So I used the violin for that. And then I used my like real violin to record the sort of like more orchestral, atmospheric string sounds that I'm putting on this next album. Because it's a little more of like that warm vibe. The violin made out of car parts, I think if you hooked it up to like, what's it called? This like one of those mics that people use for like electric violins, that could be super cool, but it's not very resonant. So I used it for just that like sort of sound effect on this song. But I did play around with different things with it, but that's what I landed on with that one. But I wish I had more. He has so many cool instruments, but we only have that one. So
what's your relationship with the violin?
Oh my gosh, you don't even know what can of worms that is. So I grew up playing classical music, violin. I also played piano. And like, it's kind of like all I did growing up. I have two older sisters. They also do classical music. My oldest sister is a professional singer. She lives in Germany. And then my other sister went to conservatory for piano. So like, we all grew up in this like super intense classical music household. I went to a performing arts high school where all I did was play violin all day. It's actually a really interesting school. It's this place in North Carolina that's a public university and it has a high school attached to it. That's like a public boarding high school for arts. It's super cool. Like I feel like every state should have one of these, because if you live in the state, you get to go there for free and just like do your art as a high schooler, which is really neat. Like every state should have that, because there's like dance and visual arts and drama. It was a really cool place to go to high school. So I literally played violin like 6+ hours a day in high school, and just got really burnt out on it because I was just on that really intense classical music train, and like didn't have sort of the confidence to engage with it on my own terms. So I kind of got to this point where I was like, I'm not good enough. I give up. And I quit playing violin. I quit kind of doing music for a little bit. And I stopped playing violin for about 8 years. And I got into music again because I joined a Slavic a cappella group in college. And that's sort of when I got into singing, was doing that. And that's where a lot of like my singing inspiration comes from. And that was just a total departure from classical music, because we didn't really use sheet music. It was totally different types of rhythm, totally different types of harmonies, lots of dissonance. It was very much about dance and sort of like different traditions in the Balkans, just very different than classical music, which is very like, in a lot of ways, very regimented. So I have only really gotten back into playing violin in the last like year. And it's been really cool to get back into it, sort of in the context of doing my own like folktronica music, because I'm like, I'm only going to play exactly what I want it to sound like for this song that I'm working on. I'm not going to try and be perfect and like play this classical music piece. Like, I'm going to do it on my own terms. So it's been really cool to come back to it and be like, I'm going to do it on my own terms. And I have this vision for how I want it to sound. And it's been really, really fun. So yeah, and it's adding a really cool texture to these songs. It's just like this warmth, you know, and I love the way these songs sound. Actually, the demo I put on the tape doesn't have violin on it. So like I said, it's not super representative of a lot of the other songs I'm working on, but most of the album has violin, whether it's pizzicato or just like harmonics, or maybe even like a melodic line. Like almost all the other songs have violin on them. So it's been really, really cool. That was a long story. I'm sorry. You opened a can of worms. I'll tell you my whole life story. If you ask me what my relationship with the violin is, I'm like, well, when I was born, my mom was like, here's a violin, you must play it now. So
well, you're
sorry.
making my job in this show a lot easier, which is great.
I ramble so much.
No, that's good. That's good. It's why, you know, I like people like that. I like people like artists that can talk about their art, which is great. So was the violin your first instrument?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Let me ask you this. Was it the first instrument that like this is my instrument? Or it's like just the first instrument that, you played that was just kind of like not forced onto you, but like, let me just do it anyway kind of thing, right? Or no?
That was violin because my oldest sister Lydia played violin and I always wanted to be like her. So, do you have siblings?
I do. I have two younger siblings.
Younger, you're the oldest. See, they
Yes.
probably look up to you and they want to be like you. I bet they have podcasts.
Well, my youngest brother, I do the wrestling caucus with.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And both my brothers come on My Little Underground because I talk about video games a little bit on the show.
Yeah.
So when I want to talk about games,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll do it by myself or I'll bring my brothers in for their insight as well. So
yeah.
Blue Summer was remixed by Graduation, right?
Yes.
So, and all proceeds to the remix go to Vera Project.
Yes.
Tell me more about this organization and their importance to the Seattle arts community.
Yes. So Vera Project is this all ages music and art space in the center of Seattle. It's in Seattle Center, which is where Climate Pledge Arena is and KEXP is and like all these other cool things. And it's a space that traditionally has hosted shows for all ages, which is rare. And they do a bunch of other cool kind of stuff. They have a little recording studio. They do screen printing. They do all sorts of different like workshops. They've sort of been shut down during COVID just because like their like tagline is like, we're a safe space for like radical self-expression. So like, that's the kind of place that's just like, we need to keep safety a priority. And so I think they've been, more closed than maybe other venues that were more like bottom line associated. Like we got to reopen because we got to get our profits up. Like they're a nonprofit. So they've been closed down. But like, I just feel so lucky to be able to make music and to have had the experiences to be able to do this. And like, I think everyone should have that. I mean, I just think it's so, like you were saying, it's like the most human thing to do. And I think it just helps people relate to each other. I think it helps people resolve conflict. They have outlets. So yeah, I think it's a really important space to be able to have. And like, I hope it is able to continue. I think they have pretty decent funding, but like, hey, we're able to throw $50, $100 to Vera Project. That's cool. So yeah, and like we were kind of just under this thing of like, do we want to put it on streaming? Do we want to have it on Bandcamp? If we have it on Bandcamp, how do we split the proceeds? Because like with a collaboration like that, like he did all the work to remix it, but I wrote the original song. So like, I don't really even know how you decide how to, you know what I mean? Like how you even split that, like 50-50, like, does that make sense? I don't know, but like, it just felt like a good time to donate the proceeds. I think that opens the door of just like why aren't you donating all of your proceeds? It is a question I've asked myself. Sometimes I'm just like, maybe I should just donate everything I make on Bandcamp to charity, but it just seemed like a helpful thing to do in that moment.
So when it comes to remixing, I know you've said that you want to remix your songs for your live show. So do you want completely different experiences from, say, listening to the recording of your music as opposed to seeing you live? Do you want them to be separate?
Well, I don't know if they're going to be I did write that on Instagram. Like, I'm remixing my songs. Mostly what I'm doing is changing up the percussion and then adding in some additional sort of like live mixing elements. I've thought about kind of going the full no computer route and just like getting like a drum machine and kind of doing more like sampling and sort of just kind of like exploring that. The thing that I struggle with is I think a lot of times people get kind of caught up in not having a computer on stage versus like, what is the experience of like listening to the music live and kind of like, what is the compelling part of the performance? And I think, frankly, like, I think the singing is probably the most compelling part of my performance. So I'm trying to like not get too caught up in like all these other elements. You know what I mean? Because I think with solo acts, like I've definitely seen people perform where they spend like 15 minutes like doing the loop, setting up the loops for the song. And it's like, that's great, but it's not that interesting. I know you've ever been into a performance like that. So I'm kind of just at this point where I played the songs on my album live a lot. And I was just like, I could just practice them again and perform them again, or I could mix it up and like do something a little different and challenge myself. And I'm doing that. And I don't know if it's going to be dramatically different than what I've done before, but it's going to be a little different. I've rewritten some of the parts because I love giving myself more work to do. So, but I don't know if you've ever seen like, Grimes has a performance on KEXP from 2012 that was one of the like inspiration points for me to be like, I can perform live, I can do this. And she does a lot of like live mixing and sample, like triggering of samples and stuff like that. Obviously her music's very different than mine, but like, that's definitely a point of inspiration. Like, how can you pick out the elements that are compelling and then sort of like amplify them and mix them up so that someone who's maybe seen you perform live before might see something slightly different if they come to a different show. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for. It's just like, hey, like people have come to my shows before, should keep coming to my shows because I'm not going to just do the same thing every single time.
And you're giving people a reason to leave the house, especially, these days. It's I know for me, there are so many shows that I want to go to in the New York area, but given the state of society and this little disease that's running around, and financially, of course, concerts are not cheap, even at the small level, they add up. So there's got to be a reason for me to go see some of these shows. So I think that's cool that you're, taking that extra step to make people want to see you live. So, I know you're doing some shows in the Seattle area. Have you ever thought about, coming, going, I guess going on a tour?
Ooh, I would love to go on a tour. I feel like there hasn't been like a good time recently to kind of even plan that. Yeah. I think if I were to do that, I would want to kind of team up with someone or have sort of like, what's it called when you have sort of like, like sort of different events that I'm sort of planning around. Like I would want to have like some really cool shows planned and then kind of like plan around that. It's expensive to do. And I do have a job that I can't take too much time off of, but like, my sister lives in Berlin, and one dream I have is to someday play in Europe just so I can hang out in Germany more, because I love Germany actually. But I do have some friends in New York. So I would love if anyone wants to help me like organize a tour sometime after my next album comes out. I would love that. But my other secret hope is that like somehow I find a way to like be able to tour with a bigger artist. just so some of the planning is taken off of my to-do list, because it's a lot to plan. I know some people have organized small tours, and if you're kind of like an indie artist that no one knows, it's like you're sending out a lot of emails. It's a lot of hours put into. So I think it's like, at this point, my energies are being put into producing new music and finishing this next album. And then depending on how that goes, I could see maybe trying to do something more ambitious for touring. But I think with COVID and just like everything else, it just hasn't made any sense to do it. Yeah, and I mean, I think it's a question like for you too, like, do you think it makes sense for super indie artists who have no draw in like most cities to go on tour? I mean, I think for me, it's a bit of an open question. It feels like it might just be a kind of really demoralizing and like frustrating, but I could be wrong.
I think to me, there are two things to what you just said. For me, the reason why I asked you is because it was a selfish question because I want to see you live. So
No.
That's it. So, but everything you said about real life, you have a job. And again, you're a smaller artist. So the return on the investment that is going on tour is going to be very, very small.
Yeah.
I've heard plenty of stories where artists coming back from tour completely broke. And I don't want that to happen to a lot of people. So I think what you said, as far as like, you know, because I think about like artists and the music, I care about the music. You know, I don't care who you're going on tour with. I care about the music. So if you're putting out great music, that's all that matters. If I like when you said you're focusing on that, because that's important, because people are not going to want to pay to see you if your music sucks, you know? So it's got to be good, you know? Yeah, instead of putting like crappy demos on Bandcamp Day, put out a really good record that you worked on and that, you know, people are going to pay for, because I'm going to pay for some good shit. You know what I mean? I will.
Yeah. Oh man, this album, like, I don't know if you've ever had a project where you're just like, you build up layers of meaning in your mind and you're like, when this finally is out in the world, I don't know how many of the layers people are going to know about, but even if they get some of them, that's okay. Don't know if that's ever happened to you.
I'm not a musician. However, because there's a lot of music that I listen to, especially the stuff that I consider that age well, like, you start to peel back some of the layers after listening to it a million times, especially something that you really like. Like, I don't hear My Bloody Valentine the same way that I do when I first heard them, because I've loved their music for so long. It's like, okay, wow, I didn't notice that thing that Kevin Shields did, or this way that Belinda Butcher is singing, or whatever. Like, oh, I didn't know, like, oh my God, there's lyrics to the Stereolab song. That's very interesting. I'm just in it for the bloops and the bleeps. But wow, there's more to you than that. So I think, again, the better your music is, and the more replay value it has, the more the layers are going to start to come. To me.
Yeah. I hope you have that experience with the music I released this year. I'm very excited about it.
Well, you know what? Let me tell you this. When I'm listening to A Guide to the Unusual, the first time I heard it, I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I listened to it again. I'm like, whoa, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think I really like your voice, and I think your voice came, you know, into the forefront the second time I listened to it, and the arrangements are really cool too. But when I get the tape in the mail, I'm gonna listen to it again to see how, one, you sound on cassette, and two, like, you know, really starting to peel back some of the layers that you were talking about. But again, you know, you seem very giddy about your new project. What are some things that you can tell me about this new thing that you might want to share?
Well, I will say one thing that I'm doing that I recently did, and that I'm going to be doing soon again, is recording vocals in a studio. So I'm going to have like studio recordings of all my vocals, which I think is it's so interesting as someone who like is mixing my own music, and I've learned so much about mixing the past year. It's just like, when you have really great recordings, you don't have to do much when you put them into the mix, because they sound great. And like, it's just that dynamic range and the like emotion really comes through. So that is something that I did for, I've recorded vocals for 4 songs, and I've been finalizing the mixes for those and like kind of like elevating the mixes, adding in these atmospheric elements. And I'm just like, oh man, like I feel like a lot of times when people interact with my music, they say what you say. They're like, I love your voice. And I'm like, I feel like you can't really hear my voice on Guided Unusual, but like, oh my gosh, you're gonna love these new recordings because you can really hear my voice so much better with these excellent recordings. And so that's just something I'm so excited about. So the demo that's on the tape does not have the studio recordings, just a caveat. It is from my bedroom mic, which is right next to me. This is what I use to record Guided Unusual. Just this mic, just a shitty mic. So yeah, but conceptually I'll say it's sort of a haunted house album. Yeah. And I realized recently that like a lot of the music I really like is kind of haunted house music. Not like literally haunted house, but just that feeling of like being hemmed in and something magical is happening in the corner. Like that's kind of the vibe. And I think it's definitely reflective of a year that, you know, as claustrophobia of being inside and being constrained and feeling like there's no future, like how does your brain react to that? How does your spirit react to that? And I think a lot of people, my response to it is like to go into the magical realm. So there's definitely like spooky elements and then sort of like magical elements. And yeah, there's a little bit of like an ocean vibe, water. There's lots of water on this album. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. Like I think not that emojis really like sum up anything, but like I feel like I'm using the mermaid emoji more. Like I'm going to more into like mermaid spiderweb emoji. That's like more where I'm landing versus like a year ago it was like all spiderweb. So now I'm like mermaid spiderweb black heart emoji. That's like where I'm at. So to give the really like simplistic summation of like this album, yeah. So yeah, I just like, and I think a lot of the songs have, so I changed up my percussion. So on God of the Unusual, I was using a drum machine. And so for this album, I'm using using like basically like drum kit, you know, like it's not a drum machine. And I think the percussion has a little bit more, I don't know, urgency or sort of like, I find it a little more compelling. So that's something major that I've changed up is how I do the percussion. And that's been really fun. So yeah, I think there's definitely some production elements that are totally different. And then like the vibe is it's a little more spooky haunted house. So yeah, I'll stop there. I don't want to give it away.
I love water in music because my favorite album from the Ravenettes, Pei Ahi, is very watery. There's a lot of ocean going on there.
Yeah.
What kind of, and I like a lot of surf music too. There's a lot of music that brings me to the beach, like listening to La Luz, a Seattle band.
Ooh, yeah.
They bring me to the water all the time. Sometimes Siegel music, you know, some of his stuff does too. So what kind of haunted music do you enjoy?
Ooh.
Haunted, you know, any music that like aligns with your haunted house metaphor.
I feel I've been on a big blonde redhead phase recently.
Blonde
redhead. Are you a blonde redhead fan?
I've never heard of blonde redhead. No. Where can I find their music? Are they on Bandcamp?
They're on Bandcamp, and the album I've been listening to a lot on Bandcamp is newer to me, but it is definitely a haunted house album. And let me give you the name because I'm really bad with names. One moment. Okay. The album is called Melody of Certain Damaged Lemons.
That's a great name.
And it's kind of like if Radiohead had a dreamy female vocalist.
Okay.
It's Blonde Redhead is one of, I think they're super underrated.
Blonded redhead?
Just blonde.
Blonde?
Yeah.
Blonde redhead.
So I feel like they are very, in a lot of ways, to me, haunted house music.
Oh, and they're from New York too.
Yeah, they've got like a noise, like I think like for me, haunted house is sort of like dissonance, noise, And also like, I feel like the ethereal female vocals just, yeah, like if you had a ghost in your house, it would probably sound like that. So
Like listening to Elizabeth Fraser. Her voice is just,
yes.
yeah,
Oh,
unbelievable. Just
oh.
unbelievable.
Cocktail Twins is one of, there's an album they have, I'm so bad. It's called like The Moon and the Melodies. That one is really good. The one that has, or is it Harold Budd? I'm blanking. I'm gonna find it. One moment. The Moon and the Melodies, I think. I think that's what it's called.
I think like their first like few albums are very spooky. And then like Heaven Las Vegas, they're getting like, you know, okay, we are outside now. We're not inside this dark room anymore. You know what I mean?
Yes. I mean, I love things that are super wall of sound.
Yeah.
I would say this album that I'm producing is like one of my songs literally has sound effects in it. Like it has, like it sounds like you're on a boat. Like I recorded some sounds that are just like, sounds like you're in a boat, and then there's like violin. So the song literally takes place on a boat in a sea. So I did try to add these like atmospheric elements. So some of the songs literally have like water in them. One of the songs I'm probably going to release this summer is called I'm the Lake.
Perfect for the summer. Oh, you're gonna have to come back. You're gonna have to come back and talk about, you know, whenever you're ready to put out this
I kind of want to do like a live performance at a lake. Like that's kind of my dream. So like do an album release show like outside and like, yeah, just have it be a little more.
You're speaking my language. You're speaking my language. I love outdoor shows, not festivals, just outdoor shows.
Yeah.
Artists playing outside. I like that.
Bring a picnic blanket. Yeah.
Yes. Tons of food, water. Got to stay hydrated.
Yes.
All right. I'm not going to let you go until you tell me about some wrestling shows that you've been to. Like, what was the last one that you went to? What did you see?
Okay. I went to one, I want to say it was in November with my friend. So my friend Chris is like an epic wrestling fan, and he's sort of the person who's gotten me back into it.
Okay.
He's the kind of person who also like on the weekend, he only wears wrestling shirts.
It's kind of like me sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. When you have someone in your life who's like super into something and you want to hang out with them and be their friend, you fundamentally just have to get into their thing too. I did grow up watching wrestling on TV. Because I'm 34. So like when I was a kid, like I guess it was WWF, WWE was like, it was just on TV at all times. So the last show I went to, I think it was called like SOS. I want to say it was Defy Wrestling. I'm not entirely sure who the promoter was. And yeah, I can't tell you the names of anyone except Daniel Makabe definitely performed, and he was great. And yeah, I love the performance aspect of it. I love the threat of violence that hangs in the air. You don't know if someone's going to get hurt seriously. I mean, like that is just an element of like, and I think like seeing a live music show is just like people are creating this thing in front of you in real time. And like, that is just a cool thing to be part of. And like, I love yelling at them. I love going, boo.
Same. Yeah.
And then like the place I go to, I don't know how common this is, but like whenever they say like Solid Steel, the audience goes Solid Steel. And so whenever there's anything, there's all these audience things, you know, that are really fun.
It's very interactive.
It's super interactive. And I think like live music could like learn something from wrestling, maybe a little bit, because like they make these shows for the audience, you know, and like, it's so fun to go to a wrestling show and then you're hoarse the next day and you're like, wow, that was great. And like, there's all these personalities and I don't really understand the backstory, but like, I know it's important and here we are. And so like, I think music's a lot of the same wave. And I feel like a lot of indie musicians kind of forget that you, like we were saying earlier, you got to get people out of their homes, off of TikTok and into the, you know, out into the venues. And so you have to like create something that's compelling, and wrestling definitely does that.
Absolutely. So, do you watch wrestling on TV still or no?
I don't know. Like sometimes I do at my friend Chris's house, because like I said, he's so super into it. but like I feel like I'm sort of like a secondary fan, like it's sort of like if I had a friend who was in a band, which I do, like I have friends in bands and I try to go to their shows, and like I would probably go to their shows sometimes if I weren't their friend, but I go way more because I'm their friend. So I feel like when you have a friend who's super into wrestling and like you enjoy it too, kind of like draws you in. But if I didn't have this friend, I don't know if I would have gone to all these shows, and that would be sad, but I'm not like an informed wrestling fan, so I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. I didn't bring you on here to talk wrestling. I think it's cool that you appreciate the craft.
It's really cool, and it seems like it's
great.
so hard on these people's bodies.
Yeah, you're getting hurt for show. Think about that.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, like, I don't even understand how some of these people do it. Like, they seem kind of old and like they're getting injured, and I'm just like, are you okay?
They love it. I'm telling, like, a lot of wrestlers that I love to this day, when I hear them talk in interviews, they love it. They love the physicality. They love the crowd. They love everything about it. They get emotional. Like, wrestlers cry a lot. They get really emotional a lot. Yeah, they love their craft. They love what they do.
Yeah.
There was one wrestler, he wrestles now, he's okay now. In WWE, he was known as Daniel Bryan, but he was known as his real name, and as he is right now, Bryan Danielson. So he had to retire 5 years ago, right? Tons of injuries, concussions. So he went on Monday Night Raw to retire, and I watched it and I shed a tear. It was because I loved watching him, and he was just so emotional, and it was sad, but it was good because he was healthy and alive. Some wrestlers, they don't make it to past a certain age sometimes in the past. So, but yeah, it was really emotional. And then when he came back to wrestle, it was even more emotional in a good way. So he's still wrestling now, which is amazing. So it's a very emotional craft. So
yeah, it's cool. I mean, we could talk about this at another point, but like I kind of wonder if it's had a resurgence because there's like nostalgia for WWF, or has it always just been sort of like going strong? Or
there is a nostalgia for the past, of course. As far as like, it's not really as popular as it was in the mainstream, but like what's happening now is like the niche of wrestling is as strong as it's ever been. The niche of it, like the people that are very hardcore, that love it, that is the loudest voice in wrestling now. People like you, not so much. There's not so much like casual viewers that much anymore. There's a lot of the people who watch wrestling now really love wrestling. So that's what
I feel like music is kind of becoming like that too. Like indie music is kind of like that too. 100%.
Like even more so.
The intensity. Yeah.
Think of Bandcamp,
people are into
right?
It. Yeah.
So like Bandcamp, there's a lot of artists on Bandcamp, right? But like the average music listener does have no idea what fucking Bandcamp is. The average music listener doesn't listen to an album front to back because a lot of their favorite artists put out 24 track albums, or they listen to a playlist, and then that's the end of the day. That's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's very few people that like are buying cassettes and buying records and buying CDs, or going out or buying music. That niche of music listeners is like, it's so different. Like it's separate from like just saying you love music can be two different universes now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just saying we love music, we can have so much. We could have nothing in common. It's insane because my best of at the end of the year, my end of the year list is it may be completely different from what you're listening to.
Yeah, I would be curious though now to know what you're best of, but maybe you'll just have to email it to me.
Absolutely. You're gonna come back. You're definitely gonna come back.
Sure. Yeah. This has been very lovely to chat with you.
Absolutely. You're very talkative, which is awesome. So
this
is your time. No, don't. Why are you apologizing? I like that. This is a podcast. You need to talk.
Oh, okay.
All right. This is your time. Plug away. Tell people where to buy Mountain Fog's music, stream it, whatever.
Yes. Okay. I will recommend everyone to follow me on Bandcamp, and you can get my cassette of Guided Unusual I recently had a Seattle artist design t-shirts, and I think the design is really spot on.
I love it.
So I've got some t-shirts for sale, long sleeve. I'm all out of CDs. So we got cassettes, we got the digital album. And then if you're in Seattle area, obviously like follow me on Instagram to know about shows. And then, yeah, I'm planning to release new music starting this summer. I'll probably do an album announcement, I think in May. This is very ambitious. So stay tuned. Yeah, and this album is definitely like a massive work of love. Everything I do is a work of love. And I would just say, yeah, like follow people on Bandcamp, but like engage with them in like authentic ways. And if you meet them at a show, say hi. So yeah, that's it really. I guess if you're on Spotify, follow me on Spotify. I put zero energy into streaming.
You don't even have a Spotify account, so
I don't even have a Spotify account. I used to like care, and I just like can't bring myself to care anymore. So if streaming's your thing, by all means do it. But I encourage you to also like mix up how you're listening to music and like buy something from Bandcamp. And yeah, that's it. That's my plug.
Thank you so much, Mountain Fog. This has been an amazing conversation. And again, you're gonna come back. You have to come back because you have music coming out. And yeah, we'll talk some more trash.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks so much, Peter.
Absolutely. You have a good night.
Yeah. Okay, bye.